Good morning, everybody. I say good morning because that's what it is here. It's 10:25 a.m. and I suppose you're wondering what's going on here. Well, we're standing in front of Our Lady of Victory Church on South Catherine Street in Plattsburgh, New York, right in front of the Mutscheller Catholic Charities Center. And we're going to go inside and talk to the personnel here to keep you abreast of what's happening in the changing Catholic scene in the North Country. As you know, this coming Sunday, the 13th, will be a Catholic Charities collection in all of our churches in our diocese, including here in the town of Champlain, Moores, Altona, wherever, right in our section. Don't forget Father Gardner and Shazy also. And we'll be talking here to Steve Patnode. Steve is a native of Champlain, New York, and is the office manager here. The director, Pam Wilson, is not available today. She was going to talk with us also, but I'm sure Steve will be able to answer our questions. Of course, Calvin is on the camera, and Bob Venn right here to let you know what is going on. If Calvin will pan across, we're up on lower South Catherine. We're at 151 South Catherine. The OLVA, the Old Academy, is right there, the big building, the two-story. On the far side is the Secretarial School, where many of our fine graduates get the secretarial jobs throughout our county. And then the Catholic Church right across the street, the old Our Lady of Victory, and just off to the right, the rectory. And I'm in my old neighborhood here. I was not born here, but I was brought up in this neighborhood about 2 blocks down toward the bridge. I lived there for 5 or 6 years back when I was in my early teens, and 11, 12, 13 years old. Went to church here. I also was an altar boy here with Father Bashaw. That's many years ago, back in the middle 30s. And things have changed an awful lot here. There's no longer any St. Mary, I should say OLVA school. Notre Dame is way in the background. You can see the one-story building. That's a private school that the parish subsidizes in tuition, but it's not exactly like we have in Champlain. We want to welcome you again to Channel 21, Hometown Cable, and hope you enjoy these shows. And if you do, please let me know, let Calvin know, and don't forget our sponsors. We're going to go inside and talk to Steve. We feel very much at home. There's 3 Champlainers in this room, Calvin on the camera, of course. Yours truly, Bob Venn, and with us is Steve Patnode, the office manager here at Catholic Charities on South Catherine Street, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We call it What's Going On Here, so we're here to find out what's going on, Steve. Okay. And maybe before we get into Catholic Charities itself, you might want to tell me what you've done since you've left Champlain after school.
All right. Well, after school, I went to college for a couple of years here in Plattsburgh, and I finished that for a while. I decided to take a break from that and try and figure out what I was going to do next. So shortly after that, I started to work at Anchor Motor Freight in Champlain. I worked there for about 6 years, and then things slowed down there in the early 80s, and some of us were laid off, so I decided not to wait for that call to come in again, and I started applying around for different office manager type jobs like this in Plattsburgh, and I got applied here. It was advertised just as a human service agency, so I didn't know what agency it was going to be at the time. And I got the call, I was interviewed, and I, like many people, I think probably that are watching this, they're not really sure what Catholic Charities is or does, and I was one of those people when I walked up to the building and saw that it was Catholic Charities. I had never seen the office. It was on Court Street at the time. I had never seen that building. I didn't know what Catholic Charities did, even though I was although I've been a Catholic in this area all my life. So I sort of came from the same angle of not knowing too much about it as a lot of people come to it now. That was almost 8 years ago. I've been here ever since as in the office manager position, working on all of the bookkeeping, managing the grants, and that type of thing, record keeping.
We want to mention, of course, that Steve is the son of Carol and Jim Patnode on Pine Street in Champlain, and his sister Susan lives right across the street now in the former Lester Coopy home, right?
Right. Yeah.
And your brother down here is Metropolitan Life?
He was, and now he's at the agency insurance.
He's at the agency insurance.
Just down the street.
Right, so we're really close here, and your family and yourself were very good Catholic followers in Champlain for years. And,
stayed centered around here in the area. Yeah.
Close friends of my family, my children, and Calvin's children a little younger. So, but it's a pleasure to be here, and someone that we know, and we feel like we're neighbors. Okay, so you came here about 8 years ago. And how many offices are there, like this office here?
Okay, well, in this diocese there are, when I started there were 4 offices. Ogdensburg is the main office. There's this office, there was a little bit larger office at the time in Malone, and then there's also a large office in Watertown with several satellites. The Malone office is still there, but because of some, basically a little trouble in staffing, it's become a little more of a sort of a by appointment only basis, although there's a secretary at the office there all the time. So the size of the agency keeps shifting. It's definitely grown in the last 8 years. There's a much larger full-time staff than there was when I started. On Court Street, we were in a very small office, and as Father Steve Grotto, the diocesan director, aimed toward the future, his intent was to get a lot more full-time personnel going and keep them going. And we just outgrew that space down there. There were only 2 counseling offices, so we started looking for a larger space. At the time we started to look, just by good fortune, a family named Mutscheller, which is the name that's on our sign out front. A lot of people don't know what that name means on the sign. They were from downstate, but they had some links to the North Country, and when they died, they left a bequest for this diocese to establish a permanent building, a permanent site to help the disadvantaged in this area, and their only stipulation was that their family name be on the building. So fortunately, this house that we're in now, at 151 South Catherine, was for sale at the same time that the bequest became available, and we were able to establish a much larger permanent site right here. So now we've got a larger full-time staff. We're able to see a lot more people. We've established, a couple of years ago, we established evening hours. So on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings now we have evening hours for counseling as well as the daytime, and we really keep the staff busy, and we're able to keep a much larger caseload going now.
Well, for you people in Champlain, Cooperville, we also should know that Father Cody from Cooperville, brother lived right next door, just to the north of us here, and Father Cody was raised within half a mile of this location right here. When I went to school with his brothers, and I think he's a little younger than I am. Father, you're maybe quite a bit younger than I am, but I knew that family, and we knew this. Mayor Tyrrell used to be just 2 doors up here. He lived here for years. So it's a nice place to be. It's very convenient. It's a very busy street out front. Where is the nearest office to you by the Catholic Charities other than in Plattsburgh? What's the next closest?
The next closest is, well, the next closest main office is in Malone, but this agency we have satellite offices ourselves locally, where we see clients in Champlain.
Where is it in Champlain?
Well, actually, with the kindness of Father Susi, he allows us to use space in the rectory for appointments for counseling by appointment, and that's worked out real well. Father Susi, we consider him a real friend of the agency.
Right. No, but they would contact you here. They wouldn't contact Father.
Right. Right. Call us here, and then we just contact Father, let him know when we'd like to be there, and if he'll have a space available. And he's very accommodating. He's really helped us out.
Are there any other satellites in the north?
Not in the north right now, although that's sort of a fluctuating thing that we've been very lucky in being able to arrange, pretty much at short notice, thanks to the parishes, located everywhere.
Right.
Others are located in, we've been able to see people in Sable Forks, Peru, Morrisonville, Ticonderoga, because we do cover...
You cover Essex County too, as
also.
well as Clinton.
Right.
Okay. And how many people do you have here in the office, Steve?
We've got, I knew there would be one thing that I should write down, because that fluctuates a lot too.
Feel very comfortable with it.
But there are 6, I believe, full-time. Myself, there's the director, Pam Wilson, who also does counseling. Angela Elliott does our maternity services. Janet Gettert is full-time. She's our clinical supervisor, providing most of our family therapy. I'm going to leave someone out. Maggie Talcott is here. She is our refugee relief coordinator. And then we also have several part-time workers. That works out well for us. People that have full-time jobs at other agencies but want to do some additional clinical work in the evenings or when they have free time during the day. So we've got a great part-time staff of people coming in by appointment to handle things like additional family therapy. We've got a counselor that's coming in specifically for Vietnam veteran counseling. We're the agency that provides that in this area. And I think that's it for the full time.
Okay, now, you're not tied in with Oil or Lady Victory Parish at all, as directly, you're not just
Right.
directly
Catholic
across.
Charities is the human service agency for the Catholic Church, but we have the direct connection with the Church, but we have to manage basically our own affairs. We're incorporated, and as far as funding goes, though, we don't receive any funding, for instance, from the bishop's fund that takes place in the fall.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all. No, those things are kept separate so in order not to confuse donors. That's why we have our annual appeal on Mother's Day, which is the one time and the only time in the year that we are able to ask for donations in the churches. Any other campaigns or collections that go on in the church during the year are none of that money comes here. So that's our one big shot in the year on Mother's Day.
Okay.
The bishop's fund takes place in the fall, a different time of year, to try to keep us two things separate.
Okay, that brings up a question of the United Fund. At one time, the Catholic Charities was part of the United Fund,
Right.
and the only drive they could have was part of the. And you have now withdrawn for reasons I think that many of us know, because of the abortion issue, etc.
Right.
And other people who are in the United Fund. And as a result of that, you now must have your own drive, which is on Mother's Day each year.
Right.
Where else do you get your money?
Well, 39% of the money comes from the Mother's Day appeal.
39%.
Right.
Okay.
That plus donations and other public support. The other 61% comes from grants and contracts. So our goal all the time is to try to increase as much as we can the public support, the donations, the annual appeal, and that type of thing, because the more we can depend on that, and the less we support, and the less we're supported by grants and contracts, the more say we have over exactly the services we're going to provide and how. As long as we depend on grants and contracts, they always come with stipulations. There are certain things you can't do, you can't say. A lot of times there's a limit on the amount of religious emphasis there is, and that's it's easy enough to work within those guidelines, but we're always looking for that way to provide more and more service on our own based on our guidelines.
You mentioned grants and contracts. I'm
Right.
pretty familiar with grants, but what do you refer to when you say contracts?
Okay, for instance, the Vietnam Veteran Counseling is under a contract with the Vet Center in South Burlington. We fall under their contract area.
So either state or federal you're talking?
Right,
Okay.
right. Another major grant that we get is from the Maternity and Early Childhood Foundation in Albany. That's money that does come through the state, and it supports a full-time position here for all of the maternity counseling that
Now,
we do here.
the money from the drive that we'll have this coming Sunday, in 3 days if you're watching this, on the 11th, that money will go to the diocese, and then it's distributed to the various offices as needed?
The money that comes in is, it's all specified where it comes from. In other words, close track is kept of exactly how much is given in each parish, so that that amount is reflected back into the community it's given. A lot of people worry about that the money that they donate is all going somewhere else, and we like them to be assured that that funding, that the money they're donating in their area is going to go to work in their area.
Okay, let's just repeat that then, to
Okay.
make sure we have an emphasis on it. You're telling me that if we're in Clinton County, all the money in Clinton County that's donated will stay in Clinton County?
That's right.
All of it?
Right.
Well, I didn't know that, and that's for you people out there that are going to contribute this Sunday, remember that. What if I said, well, look, I was brought up in this area up here in Fox Hill, we used to call it. I think now they've made that Fox Heights. It's grown since I left. And I said, well, look, in my will, I want to provide a $5,000 contribution, but I don't want it to go in general. I want it to go to 151 South Catherine. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We, that's part of the public support that we depend on, part of that 39% I was talking about. And yes, people can always specify exactly where they want a will or a bequest to go, or any donation. For instance, if we just during the year, if someone sometime during the month might say, I've got $5, $10, $20 extra this month, and this is the month maybe I'll make the donation I'm always thinking about. They can send it right to us and tell us we'd like this concentrated right in this office. We want you to use it, and this is what, and we'd like you to. Most people say we'd like you to put it to the best use you think you can put it toward, or some people have a preference for helping children or people that are hungry or whatever, and any specification that people want to put on their donation is certainly welcome, because we're serving so many different groups and so many different needs that...
We're going to have you elaborate on the different things, but right now, on the way down, Calvin and I were talking, and he mentioned to me that he was on the senior housing in Champlain's board in the beginning, and they got an awful lot of assistance and direction to build that and to plan that from the Catholic Charities.
Right.
Do you know, are they still doing this today?
Oh yes, that's the biggest aspect of our Watertown office. So I'm not real familiar with with a whole lot of the details, but the Watertown office does all year, every year, write grants and proposals every year to receive millions of dollars in support for senior housing.
No, it's not just Catholic.
All over the diocese.
You don't have to be a Catholic to come in here and ask for help. Is that correct?
Oh, that's absolutely correct.
All right, let's make sure we understand that. So that you don't have to be a Catholic and show your ID card when you come in.
That's right.
And I went to church last Sunday to get help. It's anyone who needs help.
That's right.
So you don't have to be a Catholic to make a donation to this group, because it's not only helping Catholics.
Sure.
All right?
It's a human service agency
Okay.
first. That's
Very important.
Which just covers
Okay.
the whole range of.
Could you just give me a list of some of the things, and you can refer to your notes here,
Sure.
as to what
Okay.
are the different services you do, without elaborating on any one in the beginning. Just tell us what they are.
Okay. Primarily, we work with family counseling, marital, individual, and youth counseling. We try to work on what's called a short-term casework model. That is, I shouldn't elaborate too much on each one.
Okay,
but just
we'll get back to each one later. All right?
Okay. We do emergency financial assistance.
And the man is short of money for any reason whatsoever, you are it?
Right.
Is that to be paid back? Do they pay back?
No,
They
there's
don't?
never a
Okay.
stipulation on payback.
Okay.
Some people feel better saying that they'd like to work out a payback. We tell them there's no obligation.
Okay.
Anything that comes back from them would be as a donation
Okay,
basis.
but obviously you make some kind of investigation that he needs the money.
Right.
You're not just going to hand out your money, correct?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing I guess I'd really like to emphasize in this show as we're coming up to the annual appeal, is that there is a very stringent screening process for the financial assistance. There are no blanket handouts, and also the assistance that's given, what's called cash assistance, is actually, all the assistance given like that now is voucher assistance, so that we can keep a control on exactly how the donated money is being used, and to make sure that the use it's going for is to best benefit the client. So
cash
actually there's
handed
no
out.
cash handout anymore. It's all given out in material goods, in vouchers, either some people might need a gas voucher to get to the hospital for an appointment from Sable Forks or Moores, somewhere, that's not right next to the hospital. They can get that type of thing here, and we'll give them the voucher at a gas station so we can keep track of how that type of thing is used.
What kind of money are we
Vouchers.
talking about? Are we talking a maximum, say, $500, $200
For
worth of vouchers for a person over a short period of time? Is there a maximum?
We try to keep a handle on, it depends on what the service is. For instance, a gas voucher will go anywhere from $2 to $8. We try to maximize and spread it out as much as we can. So we figure according to mileage how far they have to go and what it's for. Food, we determine that food vouchers by the number of people in the household and how long a period they need it before some other assistance kicks in. All the assistance is figured that way. We receive a grant from the state for emergency rent assistance. So after we investigate what their other sources of income are, what their problem has been, and how much their rent is, we decide how much of the money we have to put in against how much they can put in. Sometimes it's the whole amount, and if it's a family of 5 or 6 and they're bound to a 3 or 4 room apartment, sometimes those are getting more expensive all the time. And so, if everything checks out, then we'll assist them to the maximum amount that they need.
Okay, let's just take a short break here. Give Calvin a chance to rest his shoulder and maybe a chance to wet our lips here. Just take a short break. While we were having our little break, we were discussing here, and I was so anxious to find out what's going on here that I was asking questions on these when I told them just to list the things that they do. So we'll let Steve now give us the 8 or 9 fields that they're in, then we'll go back and do them individually.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I'll just quickly complete the list. For counseling, as I said, we do personal counseling, marriage, family, youth counseling, specific counseling for unwed parents, both male and female, and their families. We do life skills programs in area schools. That's a 10-week program where a counselor goes in and goes over life skills issues for young people, things they're going to be looking at in the future. We are the agency in this area for Vietnam Veterans Counseling. We're the sponsor for the RSVP program in Essex County. That's a Retired Senior Volunteer Program, which is a very successful program in that county. I mentioned the maternity services and the parenting. We also do parenting groups in this office for families with young children just having some difficulties with their children. We run 8 or 10 week series of sessions to assist them with some tips and assistance on how to parent those children.
So those are the
basic
major
services,
fields, okay.
along with the refugee relief effort that we're involved in with other agencies here in town. I mentioned that one slightly in passing because with the appeal coming up, that's a very important service we provide here, but with the annual appeal coming up, I worry, or we have a bit of a worry that people pull back a little bit with the concern that a lot of their local donations are going to help refugees and people passing through when they would really like to be helping people in their local community. So I'd like to make it clear right now that the refugee program is funded completely by different sources of funding than the normal Catholic Charities operations. And so in other words, all the money's collected from donations, the annual appeal, and other public support, wills, bequests, and that type of thing, all still goes to help the local people in the North Country.
Your friends and neighbors.
Exactly.
Okay.
All the programs that are set up to assist the refugees are all separate.
Okay.
And
Where would that income come from?
For the refugee
Yes.
programs? Again, it's a matter of constant writing proposals for grants from other sources. There are different denominational church services in the state and nationally that really come through for this type of program. That's what their main emphasis is for. And fortunately, we're able to write to them and request assistance to keep this program running.
Okay, Steve,
As well, I should mention
go ahead.
as well
Sure.
that social services in Plattsburgh is a great ongoing source of funding for that program. I wouldn't want to leave that out.
Okay. Now, if someone needs help, do you work with social services so that you're not duplicating?
Yes, actually, that's one of the nicest things about the agency network in Plattsburgh is that all of the agencies have come together to work out a system of assistance so that very little assistance is duplicated. A few years back, we saw that there was a pattern going on where one agency would provide food. A day later, we'd get a call and find out that the same person had been in another agency and another and another. We've tried to centralize it now and work it out so that each agency has more or less a specific part of the assistance that goes on in town. That keeps a better control on what's being given out and enables everyone to help more people because then a lot of unnecessary assistance is being given.
Are all your contributions in cash, or do you get, like for instance, that service station that's going to get the voucher, can he make a donation of $18 worth of gas?
Oh, sure.
Instead of cash? You know, and say, well, I'll give you a voucher and somebody needs gas, come down to the Blue Sunoco down the street or the Mobile or Stewart's. That does happen?
You mean if the owner of the station
Yes.
wants to donate?
Instead of giving cash, he said, I'll give you a voucher worth $15 worth of gas. If everyone needs any gas, come in and I'll give them gas.
Oh, I see.
Does that ever happen?
Well, if it does, I don't know about it. It would be an anonymous thing. I think, but what we try to do is circulate the donations through Catholic Charities so that we can keep track of the giving process in this area. So rather than have a direct donation made between a local person in the North Country who wants to donate and donating it directly to someone in need, we really encourage as much as possible having them donate through an agency, whether it's this agency or an agency of their choice, so that the agencies can keep track of the giving process and can also structure better how the assistance is being given out. I hope I understood that question.
Well, let me get back to that after. But now, this coming Sunday, you're going to have the contributions from Essex County and Clinton County primarily coming to this office.
Right.
Well, what can you expect? How much money? How much did you get last year?
Last year we raised, diocesan-wide, we raised $112,000.
Diocesan-wide, 112, yes.
Right. Which was a 7% increase from the year before. We're always aiming at least for that 7% increase, hoping that, and of course, always hoping for more, as I said, to try to decrease our dependence on outside sources. The more we get locally, the more we can fulfill the wishes of the donors locally in helping and providing assistance for people in the North Country. Of that assistance, we last year we provided $14,000 in cash assistance, and when I refer to cash assistance, I'm talking about vouchers and that type of thing. We provided $10,000 in vouchers from other sources. A lot of times what we can do with the money we raise here is match. It's called, a lot of grants are called matching grants. What the grant sources want to see is basically they'll say, well, if you can raise $5,000, we'll give you $5,000 to match it. So a lot of that, so that's a big help too. The greater the funding we receive, the more we can accomplish with it. We also donated, much to the credit of the people in the North Country, $18,000 in contributed goods. In other words, those are actual material goods that pass through the agency, things donated to us from groups like Knights of Columbus, Catholic Daughters, all through the diocese, and again, just private donors bringing in all kinds of donated goods, furniture, baby furniture, food, all kinds of general assistance.
Well, certainly you can't keep that in this building.
We keep some here. It's difficult, and we try to, and we spread it around, or we use storage facilities at other places, but we do have our garage here, which we use to store a lot of that type of thing. Any non-perishable food we are able to keep on hand, and it all just flows out as quickly as it comes in.
We want to remind you people that we're with the office manager of Catholic Charities. We're in the corner of South Catherine and Monty Street in Plattsburgh, right across from Our Lady of Victory Church, and we're talking about Catholic Charities. And we have a client. We had a guest that came in through the door. You heard the knocking, and it was a person. That's quite all right, Steve. We're getting back now. You were going over money, and while you were talking to the person that came in, I was wondering, of the money that's picked up in all monies, your salaries come out. There are 6, 7 people here.
Right.
Salaries come out of that?
Sure. Part of the ongoing services is that we require a full-time staff in the office.
Right.
Part of that staff support comes from the donations, and part of it again is picked up by grants who support some of our positions here. Another part of it is a lot of it too is supported by counseling fees, which I should mention is another big source of income here. But it's important to mention too that no one is restricted from any service here because of their inability to pay. We have a standard, what we call the standard fee for services is $50 an hour. Now let me make it real clear that amount is charged according to the ability to pay by insurance. If there's no insurance to cover that standard fee, which every agency sets a certain standard amount, then we do use a sliding fee scale based on the family or individual's income and the size of their household. So basically the fee scale will bottom out or minimize at like a $5 an hour fee, just so everyone knows.
Okay, what kind of counseling are we talking about? I'm going to pay $50 for, or my insurance. What kind of counseling are we talking about? If insurance covers, will cover the cost, then our cost per service is $50. It's the same. But the services are covered. The services are the same, I should say, across the board, regardless of the amount. You're talking about health insurance?
Right. Many insurance companies now.
So you're talking about an emotional problem, maybe in the case.
Right.
Okay.
And they do cover counseling now and therapy.
They do. Okay. Right.
But if they don't, there's no.
Okay. What's the advantage of my coming to see you people or your counselor rather than going to see Father Susie or Father Cody for the same counseling?
Well, as terrific as those people are, and as helpful as they want to be,
yes.
a lot of times, partly because of their schedule and partly just training-wise, they're not their specific background isn't necessarily in counseling for a specific issue. There's a lot. There are a lot of really involved family issues, marital issues in counseling, and just personal issues that the clergy is familiar with. But most of the time when we get a call, we will get a call, a referral from a priest or a clergy person, and they'll say, I've seen this person a couple of times, and I've screened them as best I can, and I feel I've gone as far as I can, and I feel they really need a professional, trained counselor. And that's what we're here for. Catholic Charities, as I said, is a human service agency for the Catholic Church. So the staff here all being trained and having their masters or beyond in different types of therapy and counseling services is trained and is here to provide that type of real specialized counseling for everyone, but in the specific instance of parishioners, certainly the referral will often come from the priest.
Does any of the counseling ever come from someone not here? For instance, would they ever refer them to a local doctor or somebody who may who's more professional on that, who would contribute his services?
Definitely.
They do?
We'll refer out from here if we feel we can't provide the best service. We don't monopolize or try to hold everyone under this one blanket. There are a lot of very specialized services in the county. There's an agency specifically for substance abuse counseling, alcohol and drug counseling. Agencies that specifically provide, there are the alcohol services and social services, that type of thing. Some grief counseling and that type. There are some real special problems that if we feel we aren't the people to handle it the best, we'll definitely refer them out. And vice versa, we'll have people referring from their agencies if they feel that we can best handle the need of their clients. We get many referrals to our parenting program from all the other agencies in town.
Okay, let's take an example. Most people out there know I don't drink at all, so I don't have an alcoholic problem. But let's suppose I did have an alcoholic problem.
Right.
And I said, I saw on Calvin's hometown cable that they can help me. What would I do? What do I do?
Okay.
I'm home and I say, I'm ready to get some action. What do I do?
Okay. That's a specific problem with some real specific assistance in Plattsburgh outside of this agency. But here's how the process would work for them, or speaking more specifically to us, say it's just a couple with, they've been married a year.
No, let's go back to me. Go back to me.
Okay, let me
I've got an
stick with you
alcoholic
first.
problem,
Okay.
and I'm home, and I say, I got to do something. I'm desperate, as I saw on TV one time. I'm desperate. What do I do?
Okay.
Do I drive down here?
If you're calling Catholic Charities to find out if we can
I'm
help
going to
you,
go Catholic
you're
Charities, so I
calling
saw it
us
on
first.
TV. Okay. So I call
Okay,
you.
call. Most of the time it's myself answering the phone. I take all the calls first. What I would do then is describe how the counseling works here. I would set you up with your first appointment with a caseworker here at the office. In this situation you're describing, what the caseworker will do, everyone is welcome to come here first for screening, because we like to, rather than bounce people around, not knowing exactly what they need, I would have you come right in, see a counselor here, and that person would find out exactly what your background is and what your goals for the counseling are. Those are the two big things at the first appointment. At that point, now in the alcohol situation, what would happen normally is if the caseworker finds that all of your issues are centered around that particular problem, a referral will probably be made to one of the alcohol services in town. But you'll have the option to work here maybe for 1 or 2 sessions if you really want to establish exactly what your goals are for counseling.
Okay. My point of my question was not what's going to happen later, but how do I contact you?
The
It's
initial
8 o'clock
contact,
at night.
you call.
It's 8 o'clock. You're not going to be here. Is
Well,
there an
that's-
answering service?
That's true. There's not an answering service in the evening.
So I'd have to,
All the crisis calls like that in off hours from all the other agencies in town would go to the crisis center.
so when I call this number, it would go to the crisis center?
No.
I'd have
if
to
you
call them.
here, you'll get no answer at 8 o'clock at night, unless it's our evening appointments. Tuesday
Okay.
and Wednesday, we do have evening hours. If you don't get an answer here, the best thing for anyone to do in an emergency situation is to call the crisis center.
Okay. How would I know your hours? Are they published anywhere in the paper? Are they in
We try to keep them published as much as we can.
the paper, in the North Country Catholic?
Sometimes in the paper, in all of our handout materials that are distributed through all the agencies and churches. Generally, the hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and on Tuesday and Wednesday evening, we have appointments till 9 by appointment.
Okay.
Yeah. If a call does go into the crisis center, they'll definitely try to help you right then and there. If they feel at that point that it's best for you to get into an agency on an ongoing basis, they'll have the client call us.
Okay,
the
but
next
I
day.
say, Steve, I really want to come in. However, I don't want anybody to see me go in your building, and they know what I'm doing. Do you have this problem?
Not very often. For one thing, fortunately, we're established in an atmosphere. We're in a community neighborhood.
Right.
Where the building is actually is a house. I think you mentioned that at the
Yes, it looks like
beginning
a
of the program.
residence, matter of
It
fact.
looks like a residence. It's
Yes.
a converted residence, and we've kept that atmosphere here so that we fit in well with the community around us. We don't want to cause any disruption for them, and keep that atmosphere too that you're coming to a comfortable location. It's not. We like to pride ourselves on the fact that we're not clinical, we're not sterile, that it's a home environment you're coming to. We kept the building as much as we could in that condition. When people come in, they are coming around generally. Well, we've got two entrances, and I should mention we have a handicapped entrance.
I was
We
just
do
going to
have
mention that. You read
we
my
have a ramp
thought
for
in the back, yes.
handicapped. But generally, I think people feel pretty secure in this area. We're out of the business area in this location, and people can come in. We've got a waiting room that is quite private and large enough so that everyone doesn't feel like they're sitting on top of
Yes,
each
we're
other.
in a 12 by 12 room here, 10 by 12, in the southwest corner of the building.
Right.
So right out South Catherine Street, right out here, and the corridor is right here. What is this building used for? I see there's 4 or 5, 6 chairs in it.
Right.
It's a little.
This room is generally for larger groups or larger
Okay.
families. Most of our group counseling goes on here. There's generally no problem, like there are curtains and that type
Right.
of thing. They're drawn.
Yeah,
you
there
know,
are
whatever
rooms
necessary
upstairs
to
that you
provide
use too?
privacy.
the
All
building?
the offices
Are upstairs?
All the rooms upstairs are used as counseling offices.
Okay, are
There are
your
4 upstairs and 2 on this floor.
okay? Are most of your people local, or are they from? They're mostly
Well,
local.
it varies. Right now, like the director, Pam Wilson, was a resident of Malone and came to school here and has been working here ever since. I'm, of course, from Champlain. But we do have a worker who is from Illinois and came here because she's married to her husband is in the Air Force. 2 of our workers, actually, our maternity caseworker and the refugee relief coordinator. And our clinical supervisor, Janet Getter, she and her husband have been here about 10 years, but they're from the Midwest.
Okay, you mentioned maternity. Let's get into 2 things that we think of when we think of Catholic Charities, particularly I do. One is maternity, and one is adoption. Let's get into maternity first. Now, we're talking mostly about unwed people, or are they both?
Mostly now unwed parents.
Unwed parents.
And a lot of times, well, the emphasis has really shifted quite a bit in the agency in the last few years from adoption to support for unwed parents, because as the stigma has dropped away from being a single parent. So what we've seen is that we had to shift our emphasis to supporting that single parent helping them learn how to adjust to that situation, how to parent the child by themselves, and oftentimes in a low-income situation. So there are a lot of difficult factors there that have to be worked around. The agency last year actually finalized only 5 adoptions in the whole diocese, in all of our offices. And
Okay.
I think a lot of people have
Oh,
still
yes.
have the old-fashioned notion that we're primarily an adoption agency.
Okay.
Well, we would love that.
Okay, let's
But,
emphasize that. Only 5 adoptions.
Mhm.
Were these all babies or were they older? You have
These were
older
these
children
were all
too, right?
infants.
All infants.
All infants. The 5 that there were.
But you have adoption available of 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds?
That, I would say, I would have to say almost never happens at least in this diocese. There's almost never an older child surrendered here. The older children are surrendered primarily into the state social service system, and that type of adoption is handled through the Department of Social Services.
So it's not the lack of people wanting children, it's the lack of children available?
No, that's
Is
exactly
that right?
We've got a long waiting list of people waiting for children, and unfortunately, with the the ongoing availability of abortion, and again just the willingness now of families to pull together with the single parent and help that person support and raise the child. Adoption, at least in this area,
Yep.
and pretty much nationwide, has really dropped
I don't know if you,
drastically.
okay, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed in several of the local papers, maybe some of the people, where you see ads, there'll be numerous ads for children available.
Yes.
An individual can make a private arrangement with someone to adopt their child?
They can. We certainly discourage that.
But it can be done, is
Sure,
that right?
sure,
I didn't know
sure.
that. I
That's
didn't
a-
know that I could
yeah.
just have a child and say, I'm gonna give it to somebody.
Right, right.
And make
can
the
be
arrangement
handled-
myself,
just
right?
be handled by the lawyers, and yeah, that of course, unfortunately, at least from our point of view, eliminates all of what we consider the necessary confidentiality between the birth parents and the adoptive parents. The birth parents then are always aware of where the child is. There's more likelihood of disruption in that process, whereas we keep confidentiality. We go by the state guidelines for as far as how records are handled and sealed, and it's just a. And we also have an ongoing process, because we have the counseling available, of counseling both the birth parents that surrender the child and the adoptive parents that receive the child, because we consider one of the most important aspects of adoption the support and the well-being of all the parties involved. Where when it's handled privately, there's no counseling option in there,
Right.
unless it's arranged
Well,
privately again. And
You see,
it's-
again, money takes effect there, right? You mean, if you got the money, you can quote unquote buy a baby from someone who has an adoption.
Right.
And while many times this list you have of the Catholic Charities,
Mhm.
did you have any adoptions from this office last year at all? One of those 5?
Oh, let me think. I believe there was one.
You know, it's awfully hard to believe that only 5 in a whole diocese. I'm surprised. I shouldn't say hard to believe.
Yeah.
It's really a surprising
Yeah,
statistic.
yeah, it surprises everyone, because most people that call, even
Yes.
people that we feel are quite familiar with the agency, will call and say, well, you're an adoption agency, aren't you? And we say, yes, but
Okay.
that emphasis is really shifted.
What is your primary, of all the list you gave me of the things you do, what
Okay.
is your number 1 time spent? Or
Okay. The primary service of this agency, let me put it, it's written well in the annual report for '89.
Okay.
It's very short, but I'll just read it to you. Catholic Charities directs the majority of its activities toward benefiting those who lack resources to resolve problems and issues in their lives. And that's basically it. It's support of local people who are in any situation where a service is needed that they can't find anywhere else, that they
And it
can't
may-
afford. It can be anything, but
It
it's
may not be money at all, right? It just
No.
need help.
Primarily, it's counseling.
Counseling,
It's the
okay.
type of place, like I said at the beginning, when I walked into the building, I didn't know what it was all about. And most people don't know what Catholic Charities is all about or what they would need it for until they need it. And that's when you're going through the yellow pages or whatever, and you're looking for an agency, and you don't know where to look, so you look under marriage counseling, and that's where we are. And that's the main reason that people don't think or don't know what Catholic Charities is until they need it is because it's a confidential agency. When people come here for a needed service that involves marriage, individual, whatever type of counseling, they don't talk about that when they leave here. It's their problem, it's between them and us, and that's where it stops. So it's sort of a big service going on silently.
Okay, let's put it in perspective. You're talking to potential of 2,300 homes, Rogers Point, Champlain, Moores, and Jay-Z out there. You're talking to those people who have problems, and they don't know they have the problem. What do you want to say to these people so that what can you do for them? What are you telling them? If you're having, you're not getting along with your spouse, you don't have enough money, you got headaches all the time, you don't know where you're going, you're thinking of suicide, you just don't know what's going to do.
Right.
What do they do?
That's what we're here for, basically. The first thing to do is, especially people are in need in different degrees. Some people think, well, I'll see about getting a little counseling in a month. But some people come to the end of their rope and they need it right away. Regardless of what that timeline is, that's what we're here for. And the first thing for anyone to do looking for that type of assistance is to call here right away, get set up for the first appointment. It's a screening process where basically we find out, like I said, what your background is and where you want to go, what kind of help you need. From that point on, we have the capability here to assist anyone in any type of need, pretty much at any time.
So whether the person is working is unemployed, or has a $10,000 a year job, or he and his wife both make $40,000 a year, you can help them all.
Exactly.
They don't have to worry about money.
No, it doesn't matter how much or how little
they're making, and they all have problems. Matters
That's right.
Money,
That's
right?
That's right.
Money does not solve their problems.
Right.
Okay.
So so it runs the gamut, really. It's financial assistance. It's emotional support. Sometimes someone just needs a hand getting more information about what other assistance is available for them, and we can help walk them through the agency system. What we try to do, all the agencies try to do is eventually walk everyone out of the agency system to help them stand on their own, so that these services are no longer
Okay.
needed.
Do you have many people just walking off the street without a prayer or phone call, just come in, knock on the door, and say, "I'd like to speak to somebody"?
Well, I won't say a lot, but I'll say that that's a regular occurrence.
Okay,
Sure,
let's take Calvin this time. Calvin says, I got a problem, but you don't want to call. So he comes in the door and he said, and he knocks, and you see him, you're sitting out here, and he says, and you say to him, well, what's your problem, right?
Right.
I mean, hello, what can I help you? That's your problem.
Can I help
you?
you?
May not have a problem, right? So you say, can I help you? And I say, well, yes, I've heard about your agency. I've read about it in the North Country Catholic, and I've heard some people have been here, and I'd like to talk to somebody.
Okay.
I'm Calvin. I'm Calvin now, not about it, it's Calvin. And I think I got a problem. I'm standing up out there, and go ahead. What do I?
Well, first of all, I would check and see if there was a counselor.
You're not going to check. You're going to answer my question. We're
Right. Okay.
We're impersonating this question, right?
All right.
Okay. I was wondering what you could do to help me, because I've got some problems. I'd like to talk to somebody.
Okay. Let me check and see if there's a caseworker available right now. If there is, I'll have that person come down and speak to you right now and see if they can establish some of your goals. If they don't have an opening right now, they'll schedule an appointment with you. If it's now, if you're here for a financial reason, you'd be talking to me anyway. You don't. That's service you don't have to wait for. I handle all of that.
No, I don't have any money problems,
But if
Mr.
you're-
Patnode.
Oh, I'm glad to hear
problems.
that.
I got the problems though, and
Awesome.
and I just got to talk to somebody. And I can't talk to you. Is that right? I can't talk to you.
No, I'm not one of the counselors.
Okay,
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to steer you wrong that way.
And,
Okay.
and I
I would
should.
check and find out then if someone's available to see you right now.
You know, I've been wanting to come in here for over 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and I just haven't had the nerve. And if I go out, I may not come back in. I sure hope there's someone here to help me.
Okay. That's not always possible, I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay.
Just the size of the staff and the amount of casework they have, most of the time, all of the staff is in session with someone. So just so people don't think that they're sitting in their
Okay.
office and they don't want to talk to them,
Okay.
most of the time, if I can't get someone to see right away, it's simply because they're seeing someone else.
Okay, now suppose there's no one, everyone's busy, right?
Mhm.
But you know that if I walk out of here, I might not walk back in.
Walk back.
Are you going to get someone to talk to me for at least a minute?
If I can.
You know, saying, look, just
Including
come back
myself.
tomorrow, or you know, give me some encouragement?
There's general information I can provide. I can generally speak to any one of the clients that comes in, not in therapy terms, but in terms of what they're looking at when they come to work with this agency for 15 or 20 minutes.
But I want to tell you right now, I don't go to church.
That's all right. You don't even have to tell me.
I don't have to tell you that? Okay, because I don't always go to church.
Yeah, you don't
But
have
that don't make any difference.
That's,
Okay.
That's not part of your issue as far as we're
Okay.
concerned, right?
Okay.
The also, I should mention 9 times out of 10, or almost 10 times out of 10, the person, once they've made that contact, walked in the door, and I've spoken to them a little bit, and if there isn't someone else to see them right away, by the time we've made some contact, they're willing to wait until someone can call them later in the day from here. If they've gotten over that point where they've gotten through the door, they're pretty much set now. They've got the goal of continuing. If it's a real crisis, you know, we're talking about somebody that's just suicidal or just so distraught that there is no waiting. I'll have them wait here in this building until someone does become free. That is a very rare occurrence. And there is also, like I said, there's also crisis counseling available all the time at the crisis center, and we will refer to.
Now, how many people, an estimate, did you handle through this office last year? Do you have any idea? This office?
In this office, I wish I had brought our annual stats in with me, but okay, let me break it down a bit to
Okay.
on the diocesan level. We handled a total of 1,231 actual persons for counseling services in 1989.
In this office?
In diocesan.
The diocese, beg your pardon,
Right.
diocesan, what? Yes.
I would say because we break down to probably about half of that number. Because the other offices, for instance, like I said, the Watertown office has a primary function in housing and grantsmanship for that type of thing. We have a real heavy aspect here for counseling services. So I'd say we probably, I wish I had those exact stats right in front of me, but I'd say we probably handle at least half of the counseling diocesan-wide, if not a little more of it.
Go ahead.
Okay, and other assistance, more short-term problems and the actual material assistance. We helped almost 5,000 people diocesan-wide last year, which would break down in this office to probably 2,000, 2,500.
Okay. In addition to your 6 or 7 employees that are on the paid staff, you have volunteers?
Yes, that's a major part of the agency here. The, of course, RSVP in Essex County, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, has, well, their whole program is run with volunteers. There are 472 volunteers working in that program there.
What do they do?
They do all kinds of services in, they have 62 different locations in Essex County they work in. These are senior citizens. They're just getting out there. They're helping in schools, they're helping in lunch programs, they're helping to drive other people to appointments, to medical appointments, that type of thing. it's a whole gamut of activities that they do there.
And you don't have that in this county?
We don't sponsor it in Clinton County. It's the Clinton County program is centered in Clinton Community College, and but we felt that one way we could reach Essex County was to sponsor that program in that county.
That's terrific. Over 400 people.
That's a
big lot of people.
It's one of the biggest programs in the state. The our other main source of volunteers is with the Refugee Relief Program. We have about 275 volunteers working with that program, and they're doing the same types of things. They do a lot of driving, transporting the refugees for appointments, and for keeping them fed, and getting them to medical appointments, and getting them to their legal appointments so that they can enter Canada. And then we have our own volunteers here in the office who
would do office work,
right.
So forth. So if anybody out there wants to volunteer, they would call you and say,
definitely.
I would like to help in some way. I can take shorthand, I can type, I know how to file, correct?
Right, yeah, just let us know.
And I can't work a lot, but I could donate 2 hours a week or 2 hours a month, and you'd be glad to have them come in.
Sure, most of our volunteer needs are short.
All right, let me take
periods of time.
my first thought on that is, we got some people who are volunteers who aren't maybe trained quite as much of keeping secrets. Do you have any problem with volunteers coming in here and handling papers?
We don't have the volunteers doing any assistance, any services that are that handle confidential
Okay,
materials.
let's make sure that's understood.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
because you people are dedicated, but the volunteer comes in and he maybe just knows you a little bit.
Right.
I'm not talking about anybody out there in our viewing audience, but let's just make you comfortable on that.
Right.
All right, let's take a short break, and then we'll be right back with Steve Patnode. For anyone just tuning in after that fine commercial you just saw from one of our sponsors here on Hometown Cable, we're sitting with Steve Patnode in the Catholic Charities office on the corner of Monty Street, just off, right on South Catherine Street, across from Our Lady of Victory Church. And I want to make sure, as we discussed in our little break, that people don't get under the understanding that this is you got to pay to come into this service.
Right.
You mentioned up to $50 for counseling fees, but that was if you have a health insurance. Could you elaborate on that? Make sure people understand that we're not talking money.
Sure. Any agency and every agency that has counseling services sets a standard fee for services. Basically what that is it's all figured against what it costs the agency to provide the service. We've set ours at $50 an hour, which is only charged if there's an insurance to cover that cost. That's a maximum, and it's not applied. It's not applied across the board. What comes into play at that point is our sliding fee scale. It's based on annual income and the size of the household, so that it's democratic across the board, and so that everyone will be able to receive the services. I'll just read something else, one more thing from the annual report that will pretty much sum up how that works. In order to provide family and marriage counseling to those who cannot use private services, and for various reasons, some public services, the agency underwrites more than 1/2 of the cost of the typical counseling case. And it's very important for everyone to know that unmarried parents, both adolescent and adult, receive counseling and other forms of casework at no cost. The grants we have for our maternity services enable us to provide that type of assistance at absolutely no charge to the client. I just want to emphasize that, so that no one is ever under the impression they can't come here for a financial reason.
Okay. You also mentioned Vietnam counseling, right? You get many people in that kind of counseling?
Right now we are. We had a slow period over the winter, but it's picking up again. We offer both wrap group sessions for the vets as well as individual counseling for them, and that's starting to pick up. And I'm glad you asked again, because keeping the word out there for that is kind of difficult. I really want people to be
Is
aware.
that as much a problem as we are led to believe on TV here and there?
It
Blasting?
is. This isn't an area of high numbers for that particular type of counseling, but it's a need, and it's something we felt strongly enough about that we decided that when we got the request for a proposal that we would write for it and try to provide those services, because it's out there, and it's the people and the people that need that service, for them it's a very big need, and we're glad that we can provide it here.
Well, Steve, we're certainly happy that you were kind to talk to us here.
My
And it's
pleasure.
nice seeing you again after knowing you as you grew up in Champlain with us.
Sure.
And I'd like to give you an opportunity now to talk to the people and mention this drive coming up this coming Sunday.
Okay.
Tell the Catholics out there who are going to church how they can put it in their envelope and why. And what about the ones out there who want to contribute but are not Catholic? What do they do? How do they give you a contribution?
Okay. For those people who are Catholics and registered in your parish, by now you would have received an envelope in your monthly mailing of envelopes for Catholic Charities. All you have to do with that basically is put in the donation you feel you can make, and donate it at your parish this Sunday, Mother's Day, May 13th. For anyone else interested in donating who either isn't going to make it to a church or is in a different denomination and that's not an option for them, these donations can be sent either directly here to Catholic Charities, 151 South Catherine Street, Plattsburgh, or if you prefer to donate on the diocesan level, you can donate to Catholic Charities, our main office, which is Post Office Box 296, Ogdensburg, New York, and that's 13669. Again, if you have any concern that the money you're donating isn't going to be donated directly to your local community, feel free to donate it right here locally so that we are aware that the money has been received here, and that way we can make sure that it's specified directly for this office.
Steve, am I correct in saying that whether you donate in your envelope to your Catholic church or whether you send it in privately, it's tax deductible in either case?
Right. Some of those stipulations changed a little in the tax laws a couple of years ago, but as far as I know right now, for the appeals that we're running, we are still able to tell people that those donations are tax deductible.
Okay.
So.
Is there anything else you want to cover? We've done longer than what I promised you, I think, but
that's okay.
You've done very well and you feel comfortable? We want you to feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'd like to have my own show now.
Yes.
No, I'd like to thank you very much for coming and picking up on this on our appeal this year. We aren't going to have a staff person available to go and speak in Champlain or Rouse's Point this year. So I guess I just want to specify once more that people know that the assistance that they're giving this coming Sunday is for people right in their own community. And a lot of time people think that it's for people who just want a handout, who abuse services like this. But really it's, until you need the service, as I said, you really don't know, you don't always know what goes on in this agency. It's important to know that it's available not just for someone else that you think needs it, but possibly someday it's available for you. And that's why it's important, I think, for everyone to know that when we talk about numbers, we've 1,400 people here and 5,000 people there, that each person is one. Each person is an individual like yourself. They're all coming in and they're all receiving their own individual assistance depending on what their need is. And I think it's important when you're making that donation that you don't feel that the money is just being poured into a sort of a conveyor belt and it pours in and it goes out to to a mass of people. That donation is helping you, it's helping your community, and by doing that, you're helping yourself. So it's real important. I would just ask everyone to be as generous as they can on Mother's Day in their local church.
And we'd like to thank Pam Wilson, the director here of Catholic Charities, for giving us the opportunity to come in and for allowing us to talk with Steve. And we know that at least 3 people in Champlain are really enjoying this show. That's Susan and Carol and Jim right on Pine Street, and of course a lot of other people out there. And when you see Steve, tell him you enjoyed the show if you did, and if you didn't, tell him why.
Yes, let me
and
know.
If you enjoyed the show, tell Calvin, tell myself, and tell us what you'd like to see on this What's Going On Here, as Calvin has named this show with Bob Venn. We'd like you to mention to your advertisers who help to fund the money that we need money too, or Calvin needs money to put on these shows to bring this and other interesting aspects of the North Country to your attention in your living room. And tell them that you enjoy the show, and thank you very much for watching, and we hope you make your contribution this weekend and have a real good week.
Thank you.
We want to mention we're standing with Steve Patnode in Plattsburgh, New York, in front of Catholic Charities. Tune in on Friday night at the 5 o'clock, the 8 o'clock, the 1 a.m. and 9 o'clock on Saturday morning show to hear more about Catholic Charities. Make sure you listen. Tell them I've listened and you did a good job.
It took a long time. You'd better watch.
Hello everyone, this is Calvin Castine. We're on Lake Street in Rouse's Point, and I, like many North Country residents this morning, feel a little sadness, or maybe a great sadness, in the loss of a friend. The Anchorage Hotel on Lake Street has been a landmark, and that is really not paying it justice by calling it a landmark. It's been a big part of this Rouse's Point community, and to many people the Anchorage was a Rouse's